Hello and welcome to T-Cat's Deep Vinyl Tracks channel. This is my introduction to the vinyl community. I'm T-Cat and I've been actively rescuing vinyl now since about 2004. That was back when not too many people were buying vinyl, and you could pretty much go to any secondhand store, antique store, anything like that to get whatever you wanted for about 50 cents. Those were the good old days, but now things have changed quite a bit. I was able to build up my record collection to quite a few different albums during that time. A lot of that had to be sold for one reason or another, but I've been slowly rebuilding that collection. But it's taken a little bit more time now, obviously, because of the cost of vinyl and things like that. It's not quite as easy to find as what it used to be. A lot of things have to be ordered now because it's either too hard to find, or especially in smaller towns. Currently, I live in Canada, about an hour away from Detroit. I am a U.S. citizen. I'm a permanent resident in Canada, and I was born in the U.S. My family all lives down there, but I live here with my wife and with 3 wonderful cats who may end up being in the picture every once in a while. You may hear them trying to speak at the door sometimes too, wanting to be let in because they're not used to being shut out of anything, honestly. I do have to tell you that I have a huge love for music. I love almost every kind of music. My favorite genre is progressive rock, and I also like indie folk and regular older folk music, folk rock that is. When I was younger, I worked at a record bar, part of a store chain. That chain has since gone under after, people stopped buying records, of course. However, I have run a music store since then, from about the year 2000 to 2012 or something like that. I worked for another music chain that sold all kinds of entertainment media like books, video rental, video games, and music. But that was pretty much all CDs up until towards the end when we started getting into vinyl. I do have a master's degree in business and human resource management. And that's pretty much what I can say about myself at this point. Now, I have tried to do some other dry runs on this video before making this one. Turned out I didn't have enough memory on my phone, and I ended up with about a 45-minute video, so I'm cutting this way back. A lot of information that I was giving out on my first trial run is not going to be added in, and that also includes any information I have on some of the records that I'm going to be showing you. I thought that as part of my introductory video that I would do the 2022 video tag. I know there's more than one out there, and I'm going to try to do the Walker version of it, as I felt that was more, it would show you more of what kind of variety I have in my collection. So with that, we'll start out with, first of all, before I get into that, I did want to give a shout out to 3 different channels. These 3 channels had a big part in getting me started on making my own channel and showing some of my own records and telling stories of them where possible. Those 3, the first one is Dylan from Noble Records. I went through and watched all of his videos way back from the beginning and saw him realize his dream of owning a record store. Number 2 is Vinyl Richie. I love his sense of humor. I love his knowledge of punk and other forms of genres of music. Punk is something that I've always been interested in, but have been unable to find a lot of vinyl. So it's been nice to hear his information and the different insight that he has on the genre. Number 3 is one that is comparatively, at least to the other two, quite new to the community, and that is Mad for Vinyl. I like his stories and how he tells about his honey hole finds. Some of the interesting stuff that he shows makes me, when I go into my own honey holes, take 2 looks at the vinyl before passing it up. It makes me really stop and consider what it is that I'm passing by. It may be something even better than what I thought it was at first glance. So, now we will move on to the 2022 video tag. The first question that he had was to show our best new purchase from 2021. Starting to see some reflection off of my screen. That's why the colors keep changing. Anyway, best new purchase from 2021. One of my favorite bands put out their 9th studio album back in October. And even as it being their 9th, it is their self-titled album, My Morning Jacket. Now, I know a lot of people are familiar with My Morning Jacket from the series Family Guy. I've liked this band for years, even before that, and pretty much own most of their studio albums, except for a couple. This one is their newest one, and it is quite an excellent album. It's kind of a return to form for them in a way, but yet still maintaining the modern aspect of their sound. This one is on clear vinyl. They call it very ultra clear vinyl on the hype tag. You can see right through it. It is 2 LPs, but only a single album. So, My Morning Jacket's self-titled album. Second, first band that I saw live. Now, I don't remember for sure. It was one of these 2 bands. It was either Bread or America. And unfortunately, at this time, I have no albums to show from either one of those bands. Bread has pretty much become defunct. America, I can appreciate every once in a while, mainly because of the acoustic side of the band. So I won't show any albums since I don't have any to show. Number 3, show a duo. The duo that I picked is Andy Summers from the Police and Robert Fripp from King Crimson. Robert Fripp was the founder of King Crimson and has been the sole member that has been consistently on every single one of their albums through the years. I love every incarnation of King Crimson, and I love and appreciate the music of Robert Fripp and his experimental style. The 2 of these people, Andy Summers and Robert Fripp, have been best friends. Have been good friends for quite a while. I can't really say they've been best friends, but apparently they've known each other for quite a while, and them 2 bringing their styles together really make for an interesting album. It's all instrumental. The inner sleeve is pretty generic, and this is the label itself on A&M. So, Andy Summers and Robert Fripp by Advanced Mask. The next item is to show a record that is still in the shrink. Now, as most of you do, I take the shrink off of them because how else am I supposed to listen to them if they have shrink on them? In this case, I didn't take the shrink off of it because I didn't know the artist well enough to know whether I wanted to actually keep the album. So I streamed some of the tracks and found out that, you know, it's kind of a pop sound, more of a mature sounding pop. The album is Ben Platt's Sing to Me Instead. This album was released in 2019. I found it in a used store in their $1.99 records. So whoever apparently put it out there didn't know what it was. Hope there's not too much glare on there, but there it is. Sing to Me Instead. He has since released another album. Next is Show a Concept album. Now, being a lover of progressive rock, I do have several concept albums. The one I decided to show is an album that I really love and haven't been able to find a good copy of up until now, which is why I got it, and it's the Who Quadrophenia. My favorite Who album, one of my all-time favorite albums. This one is more rock-oriented than the Tommy album, which most people seem to appreciate. This particular one is special to me because it has the book that it comes with all intact. Usually when you find this album, the book is in bad shape or the vinyl's in bad shape. This one, both discs are quite pristine. It's on the Track record label, which was a subsidiary of MCA. And every one of the records play very well. So, the Who Quadrophenia. Next, we are to show an album that we have not yet played. I've not yet played this because I did get several albums around Christmas time that I got with some Christmas cash. I'll be making a separate video for those items and showing them later. But for now, I will show this one as one that I haven't listened to yet, even previously. It's a collaboration between three better-known artists. Jack Bruce, who was the bassist for Cream, and Bill Lorden, who is the drummer for Sly and the Family Stone. The person that gets the main billing on this particular album is Robin Trower, and I'm quite familiar with Robin Trower's other albums, and I do have a few of them in my collection. This one I've never heard. It's called BLT, after the names of the members. Looks like a pretty good sandwich there. Did quite a close-up. You can see all of the little holes in the bread and everything. Looks good enough to eat. No, I'm not going to do that. But I will be listening to this, and I will let you know how it is. Since it was released in 1980 something or other, I am assuming it's probably not. It's probably kind of new wave-ish sounding, but I don't know. I may be surprised. I hope I am. Artists that I discovered this year. A well-known artist, more or less, but one that I've never really paid much attention to. I decided I would check into him after finding an album, and since then now I've got 3 albums by this artist. Donovan, the Hurdy-Gurdy Man. That's one of the records I have. On the Epic label. also have Open Road, also on the original Epic label. They're not in the best of shape, but they're playable. This one is a little better shape except for the jacket, and that is Slow Down World. I like all three of these albums quite a bit, and I will definitely be checking out more of this artist's music. Get to know him a little bit better. Of course, I do know the popular songs that Donovan has recorded. I'll get to know them a little more. Next, we're to show a live album. I'm actually going to show a couple of live albums. Both of these came from the same seller. This first one is Bob Dylan at Budokan. This album is interesting in that it came right after his Street Legal album was released. And this one has a lot of his famous songs on it, but they're so different from the studio versions that sometimes they even sound like a completely different song, except, you recognize the words. This works to its advantage sometimes, other times not so much, but in all, it's really a pretty good album. The label is just the basic Columbia label. There's the back side of it. And the other live album I'd like to show is MC5, live 1969 to 70. I'd like to have some information on this. I don't think that it's a bootleg, but it definitely sounds like a bootleg. There's the label, and it comes in an olive green. But sometimes the sound quality is quite lousy on it. Other times it's not so bad, but I don't know, I couldn't find anywhere that it's mentioned that it's a bootleg. It seems to show up in Discogs as a regular album, so I guess that's what it was. Next we got to show a record from another continent. This particular record was released last year. The band is known as Fovea Hex. Now, Fovea Hex is made up mostly of one individual who was a lead singer for a band back in 1969 or somewhere around there. I think the name of the band was Mellow Candle, and it was pretty much folk, maybe progressive folk. Now she's working with this band called Fovea Hex. They have released several EPs and one album. This particular recording is not considered one of those. It is more of a remix. The thing that makes this album interesting is that the two remixes on the record itself are by Steven Wilson. Most of you know Steven Wilson from doing all the many progressive record remasters, like remasters of Yes's Close to the Edge, some of Jethro Tull's albums, some of Rush's albums, several others. That's who the Steven Wilson is. Steven Wilson is a regular musician, also made his own solo albums and such, and I'm going to eventually do a video on Steven Wilson and Porcupine Tree, which was one of his bands. In the meantime, this Fovea Hex album, on the inner sleeve, there's information about the band and an excerpt from an interview. The music on this album is very experimental, electronic. Fovea Hex typically has more of a folksy sound, but very electronic at the same time, so you get a combination of both. This is also on clear vinyl. There's your label upside down. The record also came with a disc which has both the remixes on it, plus it has 2 bonus tracks, another 20-minute remix by Abel Mogard, I'm probably murdering that name, and a 4th 5-minute remix by Peter Shilvers, who's worked with Peter Gabriel and several other artists. So, Fovea Hex, definitely a band you'll want to check out, but as far as this album's concerned, it's a little more experimental than what a lot of people would appreciate. Okay, we've got to show one with the price still on the cover. This particular album is from the main guitarist from Fish, Trey Anastasio. And the album is called Paper Wheels. There's the price tag, $24.96. Has these neat little die cuts that you see the inner sleeves through. Kind of makes it a psychedelic looking kind of record. Next we need to show a punk or new wave album. Like I said before, I don't have many punk albums. I do have several new wave albums, but I decided to show this one, the Pogues, If I Should Fall from Grace with God. Now, this is considered a folk punk Irish band. Folk because they do play a lot of traditional instruments, as shown on the back cover. And it's on the IRS Island label. Quite an excellent album. This was their biggest selling album, and it's probably one of the more indicative of their style of music. Representative, I should say. Very cohesive album, too. Great stuff, the Pogues. Next we have to show a box set. Box set comes next, so here's my box set. It's actually divided up into 2. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Complete Studio Albums, Volume 1, 1976 through 1991. There they all are. It goes from their first studio album all the way up to The Great Wide Open. The second part of this, Volume 2, 1994 to 2014. And this has all the rest of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers studio albums, starting with Wildflowers, even including the soundtrack to She's the One, and ending up with Hypnotic Eye, the last Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album. So it's all there. And I put it in plastic sleeves to help protect it. Okay. Believe me, I'm leaving a lot out here, but you're probably happy that I am. We're already up to 24 minutes. So hurrying along, next comes a sporting theme. Dylan at Noble Records talks a lot about library music, and I went into one of my secondhand stores that I go shopping at and found a whole bunch of library music there one day. Some of that is worth a lot of money, others not so much. Some are really, really good, others not so much. This is one of the so-so ones. Sporting theme, Olympic Gold. Performed by the International Television Orchestra. This has several short tracks on it, as most of the library music does. Here's the label. Okay. And not much to say about that one, but it does fulfill the requirement. Next we have to show a jazz album. This is one of my favorite vocal jazz bands, and a lot of people like to make fun of them, but let me tell you, I don't find very many people that know vocal harmony like this band. Manhattan Transfer, and this album is Brazil, one of their best albums. There they are on the back. Brazil is an excellent album, and one that I would say recommend to most people that want to get into Manhattan Transfer. I do have pretty much all the albums they've released on vinyl, and just love them. Another jazz great that I like is George Benson. This one's a little harder to find. Benson and Pharrell. George Benson pairs up his music with Pharrell, who is a flautist and a saxophonist. 5 tracks. And this is another great album. Probably one of George Benson's best and most it's got the most variety on it, I think, but I like all of his albums. Best of collection. My best of collection. I have a hard time finding albums by the Animals, so I picked up the Best of the Animals, which has a pretty good track listing on it. And this will get me by until I find more Animals albums. I did find another Best of Animals, but this is with Eric Burdon. And it has a completely different track listing. Nothing is repeated between the two. And it's even signed. Somebody autographed it for us. How about that? Need to show a record with more than 8 people on the cover. This is Jerry Harrison, Casual Gods. Those are not ants, but they're actually people in there, and there's definitely more than 8. There you can see them from behind. Excellent album. Has a great mix of funk and rock, blues-oriented rock, with even some experimentalism in there. Jerry Harrison, for those that don't know, was part of the Talking Heads for a while. Soundtrack. Soundtrack I picked is one that you don't see very often. It's from a cult favorite, Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. The music on it is mostly electronic. There's quite a few tracks. The main star is also the composer, and it's all instrumental except for the last track. I'm going to try to butcher the name, Ryuichi Sakamoto. The person doing the vocal track at the end is David Sylvan of the band Japan, for those that didn't know that. Okay, VCLT is the next item. Since I'm new to the vinyl community, I don't have any VCLT. However, I did do some reviews for an online progressive site, and some of their artists used to send me promo CDs and such. One of those that I highly recommend that was released last year is Beautiful Bedlam, self-titled album. This is an excellent album, and I would advise you to stream it if possible. It's available on Bandcamp and possibly other streaming services. Inside you get their lyric sheet. They sent me a letter explaining things about the band. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to get into that, but go take a listen. Beautiful Bedlam. I think you'd be surprised. Great modern prog. Next we have a record with no writing on the cover. One band that I listen to that does a lot of that is Godspeed You, Black Emperor. Not a lot of coverage from this band on the VC. I don't understand why. They are great artists. If you like post-rock, they're one of the pioneers of the genre. If you don't know what post-rock is, this is where you need to come listen to it. They've got several albums out. They had disbanded for, I don't know, about 10 years. They all split off and did their own little projects, but they got back together and they're now currently active and still releasing albums. Their music is very unique. They use some drones sometimes. They do use a lot of post-rock in their music. That's what they are. They record on the Constellation label, and they are also from Montreal. Now, it's not music for everybody, but it is some of the best post-rock out there. Some interesting inner sleeves. Very artistic band. There's some of their members. Show you the other sleeve because it's really cool artwork. Godspeed You, Godspeed You, Black Emperor. They did put out an EP which for several years now has been the #1 EP on the Rate Your Own Music website, rym.com. So check them out, see if you like them. Another one that doesn't have any writing on the front, Steven Wilson. Several solo albums, like I said before. Used to be the lead man for Porcupine Tree. Great music. If you haven't heard him, you need to get out there and listen to his music. It is excellent. Okay, hurrying along. I will be making a video about Steve Wilson, like I said before. Next is to show some singles. I've got 2 quick ones from an artist who always likes to put non-albums tracks on their B-sides, U2. This one is I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. And the B-side is made up of 2 different songs, not on the album. Spanish Eyes and Deep in the Heart. The other one is With or Without You. The B-side is made up of Luminous Times and Walk to the Water. These are UK pressings, as you can tell from the center hole. And I like buying 45s, mostly for the ones that have B-sides that aren't available anywhere else. Otherwise, I tend to stay away from 45s unless there's something rare. Number 21, Show a Colored Vinyl. This colored vinyl